Okay, so for today's episode, we have an amazing story of change from the corporate world into freedom, and I'd like to welcome Niluka and let her tell us a bit about that.
Hello, it's great to be here. So I'm Niluka. I'm a brand marketing and customer strategist. I'm a public speaking coach. And most recently, I've decided to go into the online business world, helping people start an online business in order to gain remote freedom and be able to work from anywhere.
That's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So going right back, studied English at Oxford. I then decided to take quite a conventional path. There were three areas most people went into. It was law, banking, consulting. Decided on consulting, and then I went into KPMG. And I worked in a couple of different departments there, and that actually, it was a pretty good experience. I kind of found my area of interest, which was in brand marketing and customer. And I wasn't unhappy, actually. I was pretty content. I liked the company, I liked my team, etc. But I kind of sat there, and I still remember this after the pandemic, which I think opened people's eyes in so many ways. And I kind of was like, right, I can kind of continue down this path, get to director, maybe partner, stay in London. And I thought to myself, I projected forwards and I thought, no, I've got to do something. I've got to follow my heart in some way. It's so cringe kind of when you say it. But, you know, I knew that if I didn't do that, I would always look back and think, what if? So it got to this point where I was like, okay, I'm not unhappy. I'm actually doing quite well. I could stay here, but I'm going to make a change. So I decided to take a sabbatical, and there were two things I wanted to do. I wanted to work from anywhere, and I wanted to have my own company. So that was an incredible experience. Worked in 6 different cities across the world, took to market a tech startup, and learned so much. But the biggest thing I learned and saw, and also meeting people like you, is that this whole, you have to stay in one place and you have to go to the office and you have to kind of follow this cookie cutter approach. It's being torn up now. And I think there is such an opportunity for people to work from anywhere. And one way that I can see that this is possible is by starting an online business. So that's kind of where I've got to now. As well as that, I've also got my public speaking coaching business as well. And like I say, I love brand and marketing and customer. So that's kind of a little bit of a nutshell in terms of my journey.
I love it because it's like, it's different things that people might think they're too disconnected, and you've been able to put them all together, and they all make sense now for you, and not just for you, of course. But like, there's one part I didn't get is like, what was the actual motivation to do this? Like, what was the burning desire?
Yeah, I think if I speak, so as I said at the start, I wear a couple of different hats: the brand and marketing hat, the public speaking hat, and most recently this online business digital nomad hat. So if I think about that most recent one, the motivator for that, you know, it's funny, when we were all working from home, so when I was in my consulting job during the pandemic, I think we all had our eyes open to the fact that we could do a lot of our job remotely. And I thought to myself, well, if I can do my job remotely in my London flat, why can't I be in Italy, somewhere beautiful, doing this? And I also thought to myself, hang on, life is for living. And I'm a big believer that you can have a great career and have a life that just enriches you in so many ways. And I think working from anywhere, digital nomadism, is one way to do that. So that really was my motivator. It was like, hang on, there has to be another way. And I'm going to go out and experiment and see if it's possible.
Awesome. And do you have any like success story with your customer clients? Has anything like, anything that's worth noting that happened to you that impressed you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've worked with a couple of clients in different capacities. When I think about my public speaking business, which is online, it's always been online. I have that for 3 years, and that's just let me do that from anywhere. One amazing story, and I still remember getting the message in my inbox. She's a CEO of a company, and she wanted help with public speaking, presenting. And I thought to myself, wow, this woman who is like super high up in her industries, leading like a company, actually, she was pretty nervous when it came to public speaking. She lacked that confidence. And so to work with her and to see that transformation from like such on paper, such like a confident person, but then helping her actually deliver her speech at the end, that was an amazing, amazing story for me to see that. And I think we forget how even very senior leaders can absolutely hate public speaking.
Yeah, and by the way, this is something that a lot of people like debate about, which is like how you do one thing is how you do everything, and I don't always agree with that. It depends on the situation and on the things. But like this example, it's like you're very confident as a CEO, but maybe you're not so confident on a stage, maybe speaking to an audience. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it just makes me think how, what we portray isn't necessarily always like our inner self, or we can create a perception that maybe isn't true. So if I think about a great example of this, probably from meeting me, you think I'm extremely extroverted and always love being around people. And don't get me wrong, I love meeting people, I love doing things like this. I am a very confident, outgoing person, but actually I'm a bit of a secret introvert. I gain a lot of my energy from being alone. I love being alone. So I think what you said there is, in that example that we were just talking about, someone can come across in one way, but that true inner self, you may get completely wrong.
Yeah, and like I think that when it comes to people, like I think we have the hardest thing to find is our strengths. Like we are very, and there's a scientific reason for that, but we are very much inclined to see all the weaknesses that we have, all the the flaws, all the things that don't work with us, and it's really hard for us to find those strengths. And what I found out recently is that once you tap into it, once you lean into those strengths, then they apply across the board. Like everything that you do, you can then transfer those strengths. Like for example, in my experience, I was a singer, metal singer, sang on stages from sometimes in front of 500 people, sometimes in front of less than five, depends, But the good thing was that like that was my most like the best moments of my life were on stage. And I kind of struggled to recreate that feeling in my business because I was like, if my strength is being on a stage as a singer, how can I do that as a business owner? And then recently I realized actually one of the reasons for these podcasts is that I have such a great time and it feels almost like being on stage for me. So when you understand that the strength was not being a singer, well, hopefully that too, but not like it's something that can extend to some other areas. And when you do that, you can then become successful, like the secret to success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it reminds me a little bit of, I think it was the CEO of Airbnb. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and very, very early on, he was a DJ, and he was talking about how the skills that you get from being a DJ, like you have to read the room, you have to realize, okay, this song is getting everyone up and ready. This song maybe, like you actually gain a lot of skills that then can be transferred to the entrepreneurship world or whatever it is that you're doing. And it just makes me think when you're talking about that and knowing your strengths, I think also there's something very interesting in that your strengths can come from things that you didn't expect. So you're talking there about being a singer, and I just gave that DJ example. But for me, I never thought being a digital nomad and having to land on my feet 6 times in a city knowing absolutely no one would kind of bring out this strength in me, which is dealing with uncertainty, having to navigate a completely new scene. And I think that if you do that in your life, it can also be very much applied to business and to work, like dealing with uncertainty and having to navigate. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is actually, to me, the secret to success is what we always talk about in these episodes. It's like the money paradox, right? So the idea that, and there are many intricacies of this, but like the idea is that if you focus on the monetary goal or like a short-term result, something like that, the money it shouldn't be the focus, shouldn't be the actual goal. The actual goal is to have a good time, to enjoy the process, to fall in love with the process, and to do the thing, whatever it is, repeatedly for months and years and have fun doing it, right? Once you get into that, basically what happens is that you become successful no matter what, because you're automatically successful in that very moment because you're having fun. You're able to replicate that activity multiple times without worrying about that. And that's why knowing your strengths is so important. Because for example, if I have to message people DMs, or cold DMs all day, that's not my strength. Definitely not. I don't like doing that. And most of my clients don't like doing that either. So if I were told by, I don't know, mentor or a coach or someone to do that all day to grow my business, probably my business would grow for 2 weeks and then crush and disappear probably, because I wouldn't be leaning into my strength. But if I do the podcast, maybe 2 years from now, this is gonna grow into something big, and you can like leverage those things and grow your business. So that's the key to success, in my opinion. And what are your experiences like? I'd like to know what you experienced in your life and your journey in this regards, basically.
Mhm. I think two reflections there on what you're calling this paradox. The first thing I think is very interesting, and I'm going to make a comparison to my tech startup was in the dating space. So the comparison I make is when you're trying to look for a romantic partner, there's that classic thing around you attract, you don't chase. You attract, you're not chasing after something. And I think energy is so important, and it applies in business too. Are you attracting clients towards you through your energy, through your skills, through whatever it is that you're doing, for example, what we're doing today? Or are you chasing? And I think that kind of energy of chasing, of kind of quite a forceful energy, isn't always so conducive in our world, I think, particularly in the coaching space. So that's the first reflection I had in terms of, that it just made me think about dating and finding a partner and the attraction versus the chasing. And the second thing you mentioned there around playing to your strengths, I think, there has to be something deeper in what you're doing. So if your goal is, I just want to make like 6 figures a year, or I want to be a millionaire, and like that's your driver, unless that's your true inner mission and your true purpose, it's not going to be sustainable. So I would argue that like whatever it is that you're doing, what is the deeper element? So for example, public speaking, yes, I do that. I help people in public speaking, but really I'm helping people grow their confidence, right? There's something deeper there. Same for online business. Okay, I'm helping people start an online business, but really I'm helping them gain remote freedom and the autonomy to be able to have more choice over their schedule, over where they work. So what is the deeper mission and the deeper purpose behind what you're doing? Because I think that will sustain you. Cold calling people for 2 weeks, unless you can link that to a deeper purpose or a deeper mission, it's not going to be sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think like some people like that and enjoy that time. And if that's you, I mean, do it. Why not? And I think I don't believe in, one size fits all. And actually to grow a business, you need to do A, B, and C, and that's it. No, I mean, some people will do cold calling and it'll work great for them.
And I think it works if they link it, if that is linked to something deeper, fine.
Absolutely.
If it's not, and you're doing it for the sake of it, then you're in our situation and probably not enjoying it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the parallel with dating, because I always say that selling and business in general and dating are very, very alike, because the attraction that you mentioned, but also like the way you approach people. Like, for example, if a man approaches a woman in a pub or a bar, and they're like, "Hey, you want to go home with me?" You'd be like, "What? I didn't even know you," right? But if you, in that case, the focus is the money, right? The end result. Like, I want to go home with you. I want to get laid, right? So that's my goal, and that's why it makes it so much harder. It can happen. Maybe if you're Brad Pitt, it's easier, but if you're the regular guy, a little harder. But it's not the best way to have a good time. But if you do have a good time, no matter what, you're not focused on the goal. You want to meet another person and have a good moment or good moments, a few good moments with that person. Then that can turn into something better, right?
Absolutely. I think in both examples, people can read intention very, very clearly.
Yeah.
Like your intention, if you're trying to cover up an intention in business or in dating, it's very clear.
Yeah. And also, for example, in sales, a lot of people hate sales because they have this idea that they have to close the client today. And if I don't, I'm a failure. I failed at this. No, it's like on the call, in my experience, in my sales calls, it's like every time I was successful was because I was trying to help the other person, not helping myself. It's not about today. It's a long-term goal. And that's why the money paradox, like if I focus on you, prospect, and I try to give you as much as possible in that call, it's more likely, it's not guaranteed, but it's more likely that you like that and you choose to work with me for better results and more results. If I'm just thinking about, let me get the money, it's like, it's going to be much harder. It can happen, of course. It's not impossible, but it's harder for most people.
Absolutely. And I think, and I know before this, we spoke a little bit about this in terms of, what's often overlooked, what I see overlooked when it comes to business and when it comes to sales or, selling whatever it is, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. And I think people forget about the customer and they forget about, or the client, they forget about what are their wants, their needs, their drivers. Like, what are the emotional drivers behind that person that you ultimately want to sell to? And I think really knowing your customer, doing the persona, and this kind of goes back to my consulting days, but doing the work, speaking to them, getting under their skin, creating some customer personas, thinking about what are they thinking, what are they doing, what are their actions, what are their beliefs, really getting under the skin of it. I think that can help you a lot, because then it goes back to what we were saying about attracting, not chasing. What you're doing, you're just going to attract them because you know your customer so well. If you don't know your customer, you're like, well, I'm just going to appeal to like this group of people and hope for the best. Probably you'll get into the chasing mindset because you're not going to attract them because you don't know your customer.
Absolutely. So would you like to tell us a little bit more about your secret sauce and how you do things, how your coaching works and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, wear a couple of different hats. If I speak about the online business space, I think that's probably most linked to your area. My secret sauce, so I would say, like I said, I'm really going for people who want to just, revolution their life in terms of being able to work from anywhere and having more of that freedom, right? I think the problem is when people come to me and they're like, hey, I've got a skill. So I have a friend of mine, he's in the fitness space, right? If he said to me, I want to start an online fitness business, I mean, how many online fitness business coaches are there out there? Like, I mean, Joe Wicks is like your top person. So I would be saying to him, well, what is your niche? Like, what is going to make you different? But getting deeper than that, who are you targeting? So if I give a really good example, let's say you want to be an online yoga teacher. Well, okay, you're appealing to just absolutely everyone. Maybe you want to be an online yoga teacher, but your specialism is helping women, postpartum women, regain their fitness. So you become very specific. And I think in terms of, you asked me, my secret sauce, what is it that kind of, in terms of what I do, makes me a little bit different. I really focus in on that. And then I focus in on, right, we've got your niche. We've really refined exactly what you're doing. How do we then brand and market that? Because that's my background, brand and marketing. So that's kind of very, very exciting for me.
Love that. Yeah, I would say that there are a lot of things in common the way I approach this. And I just want to share real quick an example of a client that I worked with, and that explains exactly what you just said, because he was a mindset coach, generic, and the problem with that is, I hope mindset coaches don't get mad at me for this, but most people don't wake up in the morning thinking, I really need a mindset coach today. But what people think is, I need to fix this problem, or I want to achieve that thing, right? And this guy basically was not making a living with this, despite being in the business for 8 years. He was making around 500, 600 a month. And we started working together, and he realized, using this process that I used, that basically he could help violinists with stage fright, right? So the fear of being on stage, and that was impacting their business or hopes to make that as a not business, sorry, their work, doing that as for a living. And because of that, like, it's what you said, like, it's super specific. It's a very specific niche. In fact, he was doing that in Italy, and he was the only one targeting that kind of niche with that kind of thing. And not just the niche, but also the desire they had, or the problem they had, was super specific.
Yes.
And when he did that, like, overnight he became a thought leader, rather than being like just another mindset coach.
Exactly.
And I don't even understand what that is, right?
And I think, when clients come to me, they're often worried about, oh, but aren't I making the net not as wide, aren't I like boxing myself in? And I kind of say to them, well, actually, you want to attract and you repel. You want some people to come across you and be like, you know what, not for me. It's like, for me, right? I'm not a generic online business coach appealing to absolutely everyone. I'm appealing specifically to people probably who are in the corporate space, who want to be able to work from anywhere and gain more of a remote freedom, right? And so, I think being able to actually repel some people, I'm not going to be for everyone, you're not going to be for everyone. I think that's really good. You want to attract and you want to repel. And that example you gave with the violinist is a great one.
Yeah, and also like the reason why, for example, he did that and no one else could have done that is that he was a violinist in the first place, right? So he understood them very well.
Yes.
If I found another mindset coach who didn't have that background, he would never think of that. So that's how you can combine your own personal background, your strengths, with something that maybe might be a little more generic, but with that attitude, you make it your own. And what you were saying is like when people feel like they're boxed, sure, but like this guy, for example, he was the only one. Like it's a difference between being a commodity. Like I can pick whatever fitness coach online, and I'm gonna be the one as a client who can leverage the price, because I can choose the price, right? I set the price. But if you're the only one, there's no one else doing that thing. And by the way, that guy was really, really talented because in just a couple of sessions, he could get rid of stage fright for those people. So if you have that kind of skill, like he was not even being noticed by people before.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of paradoxes. Like it's a paradox because on the one hand, you're like, well, I'm getting too niche. I'm appealing to such a like small group of people. Surely that will like limit my chances. But the paradox is by appealing to a small group of people, you're actually going to attract, back to our attract and chase idea, you're actually going to attract people because you're appealing so strongly to that subset. It's a classic thing in marketing. You appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to lower your prices. This guy was able to make more money with just one client than what he was making before in 3 months, right? Because you only need a few, and this is a thing that people don't understand when it comes to this, that you only need a few clients when you're getting paid high ticket. Because in the beginning, that's all you need, right? So after that, you can grow and scale, whatever. But in the beginning, you just need a couple of clients to get going. Whereas with the other approach, when when pleasing everyone, when you're appealing to everyone, maybe you need hundreds of clients, which is much harder to get because you have also a lot of competition there. Awesome. So speaking of all of this, how much do you think there is actually a connection between personal growth and being successful in business, basically, in what you do?
So I think that's a great question. And I think I'm going to start with how do you define success? Because if we're defining success as you are a founder of a startup and after 5 years you exit the startup, you get bought by another company, and that's success. Or for example, let's take kind of being in the corporate world, you reach partner and you're kind of leading a big department, that's success. Then I would say success and personal development in that respect are linked, right? If it's a very extrinsic thing that we're using to define success. If we define success as more intrinsic, as growth, as have you learned new skills, have you developed as an individual, you can be a founder of a startup and not exit it. Maybe the startup stopped, maybe you had to wind it down, but during that period, you grew as an individual, you learned so many skills. That success then, and we think about personal development, in that respect, the two are linked because you've developed as a person and it's been a success because we're defining success as something intrinsic. So I think it depends. I mean, what do you think? What's your answer to that question? I'm curious.
Well, I think that, again, success is very relative and subjective. I think that success is when you are happy with what you've done, achieved, no matter what number you put on top of that. Like it could be that you become a multimillionaire and you're like, there's actually this study that I mentioned in the previous episode, and there's actually a big YouTuber that right after that talked about it. There's this study where they basically followed up university graduates, and basically they were trying to find out what makes people happy. And most of the people who were actually happier a few years later, like 10 years, 20, 30 years later, the follow-up is like, this study has been going on for more than a century now, I think. And basically they found out that the people who were the happiest were not necessarily the people who were the richest or who made more money. Actually, the ones who were happier, like they said in this study from this YouTuber, the thing that made people happier were health, of course, because that's very important. If you're not healthy, you're not happy, usually. And another thing is relationships, right? So the fact, like connecting with people, having a partner, you can like talk about things that you wouldn't talk about with other people. So all these things are very important. And of course, money, with the people who were already happy before, money was an amplifier, so they became even happier. But the people who were not happy before making money, again, money was an amplifier of their unhappiness, right? So they became more miserable. So money is, again, money paradox, right? So money is not necessarily success for some people.
Yeah.
Even if before making money you think that if you make money you'll fix all the problems, but if you have that kind of attitude, probably you're the one who needs to work on other areas before working on money. That's where personal growth comes in, right? So if you're happy with yourself, with the people, like, you know, your family, your friends, you have a good network of people, you feel good, you're healthy because you work on your health every day, eventually money, I think, will become a consequence, right? You're going to be also wealthier because you're healthier, right?
And I think, I mean, there's so much to unpack in that, right? It's such a big topic, but it reminds me of I know the study you're referring to. There was another one, I think it was done by Yale, that said, you know, it tracked your salary and against your happiness. And at about 70K, I mean, this was a while back now, so maybe it's slightly changed with inflation, but about 70K, it kind of levels off, and you didn't see that kind of direct correlation between the two. And I remember a mentor of mine said to me, like, if you're good at what you do, and you enjoy what you do, the money will come. And it goes back to this paradox around attracting, not chasing. You know, interestingly, I spoke earlier about success being, is it extrinsic or intrinsic? I think, you know, if you are going after things that are very extrinsic, like, I just want to have like the top car and I want to have a house that has like 10 rooms and then I'm going to be successful, I think it's a very slippery slope. I was watching this great documentary at the moment on Netflix around minimalism, right? These two guys, they were doing, like, they had absolutely everything. They were living in a freaking penthouse in, I think, New York, one of them. Sold everything because he realized that the more he had, the more he wanted. And I think if you can detach from that and you can think deep down, what is it that makes me happy? Health and community, relationships with others is huge. You know, being on the journey I've been on, landing in different cities, the thing that I really noticed that gives me a lot of happiness, yes, it's my work, it's having a purpose in what I'm doing, but connecting with other like-minded humans and those relationships is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. These two things are super important for me. The network, like, you know, talking to people like you, it's like, I love doing this. And I think that a couple of months ago, I became the richest man on the planet, because I became a father. And when I take a look at my baby, it's like, I don't care how much money is in the bank, like, I'm the richest man.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like these things, I think they come way before money, and money will always, I've made so many silly investments chasing the magic strategy. I've invested more than $100K in this, basically in this business myself. And all that money came and went away, like, and there will be more that will come, right? So if you focus on the money, it's like a losing game, because it's like money is something that flows. One day you have it, one day you don't have it, then you have it again. It doesn't matter. As long as you stay alive and you're healthy and you're with people who love you and you love, that's all that matters, right?
I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to be wealthy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, you know. And I work with,
I encourage that. Yeah,
me too, right? Like, let's not think, oh, it doesn't matter, because it really does. And I think it's great if you want to earn a lot of money, you know. I think that's fine. I think the problem becomes if that is your only driver, then I worry about it. But I think it's fine for it to be a driver. You know, I know a lot of people who have that, but I think if it's your only driver and you think you're going to gain happiness from that, it's that age old, you know, money doesn't buy happiness. It's kind of true, you know.
I don't want to be like, don't get me wrong, I love money and I want to be a multimillionaire. It's not like I'm trying to be poor and pretend that I don't like money. It's just, I think that I'm going to make more money if I fix these things first and I focus on this kind of thing on a daily basis, that I enjoy doing this, so I can repeat it every single day, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. It doesn't matter, because I love doing this. And as a consequence, I will be much more wealthy.
You are mission driven, you have a purpose, you have something deeper in what you're doing. I love that.
Yeah.
And this is, I gave the example earlier of public speaking. You know, I'm helping people build their confidence. That's the deeper element. With online business, I'm helping people have autonomy to work from anywhere. There's a much deeper purpose in what I'm doing and what you're doing. And then that kind of attacks it. It's not our primary driver. I think that's what we're getting.
Yeah. It's like when I say, sometimes I say that I'm selfish, and by being selfish, I help others because I'm selfish, right? Because helping others eventually will give me more. But I don't think about the more than I make in that moment. I'm thinking long term. If I help others, which is altruistic, it's not selfish, actually I get more of it. So it's like, again, super mega paradox.
Yes. Big paradoxes in this episode.
Yeah, awesome. So I think we're almost ready to wrap this, but before we do that, I would like to know if you have like any resources or links or something that you want to share with people who might be interested in contacting you and maybe working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm active on a couple of channels. The main one to find me is on LinkedIn, Niluka Kavanagh. So you can either book a call with me via my LinkedIn, or you can just message me directly on there. Also, we'll shout out my YouTube channel, Breaking Boundaries with Niluka, which also I've been working on recently. That stemmed from this whole journey I told you about, from going from the corporate space to working on my own business and working from anywhere. So people can subscribe to that and learn more about digital nomadism, online business as well. If you want to work with me, then LinkedIn is the best place to go.
Awesome. And by the way, everything will be linked down below so that people can find you. Anything else we didn't talk about that you think is really important that you want to share with people today?
I think, you know, we've covered so much, haven't we? And I think we could talk for hours on so many of these topics.
Yeah.
I think the final thing I would say, if anyone is watching this, is, and you're thinking about doing something, be brave. Because I'm thinking back to when I was, you know, pretty happy in my corporate job. I could see progression there. I could see money. I could see status. I could see everything, right? But I knew deep down I wanted to do something else, and I knew I had to be brave. And the voice kept coming to me. So the final thing I'd like to say to the viewers watching this now is, if you have something you really want to do and it doesn't go away, I don't mean you wake up one day and you think about, oh, it'd be great if I do this, and then you never think about it again. I mean that thing that you keep thinking about that just won't go away. Just do it. Be brave. Listen to that quiet voice and just go for it. That's what I really want to tell people watching today.
Awesome. So I think we're ready to wrap this, and I hope people enjoyed this conversation. I really did a lot. And yeah, see you in the next episode.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.